So you need to replace a broken ceiling fan? Don't pay someone else to do it. Allow me to show you how to do it yourself here on My Younger Life. So step one, open the box. We went and picked up this kit. It's in a complete ceiling fan. Here we have the blades and everything, so pull all your parts out, get your instruction manual out, and figure out if you have all the parts. That's step one. Familiar yourself with those names so you know when the instructions call for something, you know what it is. So here it is. It's usually in the beginning. All your parts numbered, and the numbers coincide with the names. Pretty simple. Get your tools. We're going to be using a Phillips screwdriver, some wire strippers, and some twist nuts there for the wires to twist them together. But before we do anything else, we're going to read our safety information. There are lots of warnings. These warnings are important. Unless you like fire or being electrocuted, you do want to prepare yourself properly. This says 120 minutes install. It's pretty accurate. But what? Danger, danger, Will Robinson. No. This is, we've got to prevent electricity from getting us. So we're going to go down to our breaker box. And we're going to find the breaker that we need to turn off. This will eliminate the electricity to your room. Jacuzzi? What? Oh, we don't have that. Anyway. Go through, I don't see it labeled anywhere there, so we're going to go over to the inside of our door. A good electrician always labels all of the breakers. And that's it. It's our middle bedroom. We're turning it into an office, and it's breaker 27. Flip that to the off position, and you're ready to roll. Make sure that the electricity is off. Turn the light switch on and off. Leave it in the off position. That will also prevent electricity from going to your light. We're going to take the old one down. This one was a remote controlled fan. It's pretty fun at first, and then it stopped working. So we're going to replace that one with a hardwired one and one that actually works. So remove these screws. There's usually 4. Now that should be a notch that should not fall when you remove all those screws, but just to be on the safe side, you want to have that supported. I am on a 4-foot ladder. This is an 8-foot ceiling, which is the average ceiling in the average home. If we were higher up, yeah, be a little more scary, but a little short ladder, no big deal. We've got that down. We're going to remove, this was the remote. We're going to undo all these wires. Remember, we have the electricity off to this room and to this receptacle, so we should be very safe to touch any of these wires. Decide which kind you're going to do. I'm going to do a closed mount. It's going to be mounted all the way up to the ceiling. If you have a higher ceiling, you may want to have a pedestal mount, which means there'll be a longer post there and it will hang down further. But I have to remove the old bracket. This old bracket will not work with my new light. I think it was a little bit bigger, but we're going to replace that with the new bracket that came with the fan that we just bought. Here we have the new one. Isn't it nice and pretty? And it's basic black. And we're going to screw that in place. You really want this bracket to be good and firm. If you don't, then you could have shaking when your fan is operational. So you want to make sure that when you put this bracket in there, that it is pretty level and it is very tight against the ceiling so that you don't get that rocking that you can get. You shouldn't get that if you do it properly. This install, I think it took me about the recommended amount, about an hour and a half. So we're going to screw that up flush. Notice that green wire there. Do not take that off. That green wire is your ground and it's supposed to be attached to that black bracket. You may or may not have a black bracket, but you should have either a green or a bare wire attached to it. Leave that alone. It will be used later. So now we're going to get ready to do the wiring part. This can scare some people. Don't let this scare you guys. Just follow your directions. Your directions will tell you what to do. Before we do our wiring though, this particular light, we have to remove these orange plastic brackets. They were for shipping purposes only. So we remove those. It also tells me in my instructions to remove this screw as well, because we're going to mount an attachment there to make it close mount to the ceiling. And that's what I'm doing here off camera. It's not a big deal. I didn't go through all the directions and how to do this because every ceiling fan is going to be different. Follow your directions step by step. Make sure, however, if you're doing a close mount, that you're following those directions. It may require you to skip or go to different steps, or if you're doing a pedestal mount or whatever, you're going to do that. Now on to the wiring. If you have trouble with colors, you may want some help. But our black coming out of the ceiling is our hot, and our white is called a neutral. It helps the black to work properly, and your green or bare wire is your ground. So we're going to wire those together. Notice there are 4 wires coming out of the fan, a blue and a black. Those are both hots. One's for the fan and one's for the light. They'll go together, and then you'll twist them up and tape them off. I'm going to show you how to do this. Look at this really cool tool. It's a wire stripper. It does all the work for you. You're going to grip it. When you squeeze it, it separates the wire. I always do all these wires a little longer than the way they're shipped to give me more to work with. But I'm twisting the wires together now. These are the 2 whites. And I'm going to thread the orange nut on there in place and screw it on until it's firm. Make sure you go the same direction. And give it a good little tug. Make sure that it's in place and it won't come loose with the fan movement. You know, there's a little shaking sometimes. I put the blue and black together, and we're going to put those around the black coming out of the ceiling. The blue and the black coming out of the fan. One goes to the fan, one goes to the light, but both of those need the same power source. So we're going to go around that black one coming out of the ceiling. Give those all 3 a big tug. And here's our green ground that was on our bracket. It's going to attach to the bare wire, and I'd forgotten to strip that a little bit. Here's how that little tool works. When you squeeze it, it strips it for you. It's really nice. If you do much electrical, you'll want to get one of those. Here we go. We're going to put that around that bare wire. These don't carry current, so you don't have to worry about being shocked. That's why they can be bare. But you don't want them to touch other wires. That can cause a short out or issues, so you do want to make sure all your other wires are not showing in any way. So when we tape these up, we're taping them to, number 1, keep the orange nut in place, and number 2, make sure all of those neutral and hot wires are covered good. You don't want those to touch anything else. I hope you're enjoying this video. And if you want to see more videos that will help you, please subscribe and like. I guarantee you, I will take you on a journey. Here we are, we're taping these up. Make sure you use plenty of tape. That first one I have to go back and put a little more on, but once again, this is just firm, just keeping things in place, keeping things safe. Got all that done. You're working above your head. It is a little bit tricky. Sometimes you might have to take some breaks. Don't overdo it. You don't want to be sore from putting in a ceiling light. So take your breaks if you need them. So now we're going to attach the light. These brackets have hooks, and you can hook your light there and hang it and work that way with the wires. Mine came with a lot of wire, so I was able to set this on a bookshelf next to me, high up, and wire it without having it hanging there in the way. So now I'm gathering all my wires up so I can put them inside that bracket housing. Let me tell you my mistake here. This is hindsight. You know, hindsight's 20/20. I should have shortened those wires when I wired them in place. They're a little bit too long to try and push all in there. That's a lot of wire, guys. You can cut them shorter, or you can use a bread twist tie or a zip tie and wrap all those up really neatly and tie them up together. The last thing you want to do when you're putting all this in there and putting this light in is catching a wire, and when you twist it or short up in place, tearing the casing on that wire or breaking that wire. That puts you all the way back to square one. So please be very, very careful you don't pinch any wires or strip the coating off. If you strip the coating off and you catch it, you can always tape it up with that blue electrical tape you saw me using. But just try not to do it in the first place. So when you push this up there, it has a little tongue that goes over a screw, and you can twist it, and it'll hold it in place while you put your other screws in. As always, let me show you this little trick here. To get this screw there, I support the screw with the screwdriver already on the screwdriver. Support it until those threads catch, and then you can take your hand off. You do not want to drop that screw down inside this light. Let me tell you. You do that, you've got to take it down and shake it upside down and try to get that screw back out. You cannot leave it in there. So please be very careful when you're doing these steps. We're tightening all these up. As always, whenever you're tightening something up that has multiple screws, never screw in the first screws as tight as you can. Always go easy. Tighten them up a little bit at a time and then firm them all at the end. We're plugging our light. It's just a simple plug. We have a white to white, blue to blue, not hard at all. And then we're going to work on our fan blades. Now my fan blades are only one-sided. Some of them are double-sided. You may have a white side and a wood side or whatever. Whatever the case is, the screws go through the side you don't want to show. So the screw heads don't show. They'll be on the top. So you're looking at the top of my fan blade. The bottom of the underside of the fan blade is actually a wood grain. So it's much more attractive than this. And notice I put them all in hand tight, and then I go back and tighten them up with the screwdriver. Getting those in place, we're going to do all of those. And now we're going to put in the blades. Notice how I put the screw through the blade and the screwdriver to hold them so I could get them through the hole. I'm working alone, so yes, I did have that screw in my mouth. Sorry, I hope that isn't a bad example, but it's a small little bolt actually. It's not a screw, it's not sharp, so if you do swallow it, it too will pass. Don't swallow it. Just saying. Tighten all those two bolts up, and here's a close-up look at what I just did. The next fan goes next to it right there. And you work all the way around until you get to the end. And then you'll stop. Make sure they're all good and snug. Here we have it. And we're going to put our light. Mine is just going to have a single globe. Yours might have multiple little globes. You may even have a ceiling fan that doesn't have a light attachment at all. Personal preference, guys. Personal preference. So we're putting this in place. We're screwing the screws into the sides, hand tight first. Then I'm going to work my way around with the screwdriver to tighten everything up. Once again, take frequent breaks if you need to. This is not a sprint. You don't have to work. You don't even have to get this done in a single day. If you don't need the room, just leave that breaker off if you had one breaker. We're going to test our light. Make sure it's in the off position before you turn the brackets back on. It should still be in the off position, guys, but always double check. Turn that back on. Go up for your moment of truth. I know this is showing we're remodeling this room. No, what? Oh, pull chain. Remember, this has a pull chain. Make sure you pull the one for the fan blade if you don't have the light bulb in. And there we have it. Always that sigh of relief when things work. Put the light bulb in, put the globe on. Make sure your screw is loose. Don't tighten it all the way because you have 3 of them to put in, and you have to tighten each one in a little bit at a time until they all 3 are snug so you don't get your light off-centered. You certainly don't want this globe to fall. Happened one time at my house. Yep, it was a mess to clean up. So work your way around back and forth so you get all of those little bolts in place and even. And then once you get them all in place, you can give that chain a tug here, and yes, it worked, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video about installing a ceiling fan. I hope this encouraged you. I hope it creates independence in your life and empowers you. If it did, make sure you subscribe and like. Until next time.